Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Brutal Truth About Selling podcast. What if you had trauma, even tragedy in your life? Imagine seeing a close friend shot next to you in Las Vegas. I don't know if you remember that, the MGM Grand concert, some crazy guy started shooting out of his hotel room into a crowd, and you saw a good friend of yours die. That would mess your head up for a little bit. What if you had to live through a tragic real estate recession? And then you built yourself up after this because you had to. We all have to. And I think in sales, we have to show up every day. And I've talked about the flow state a little bit in the podcast. I'm going to get back into talking more about it and how you manage your state of mind. Because no matter what, we have a state of mind. You have one right now. It might be boredom. It might be interest. It might be laughing. It might be sad about that story. But we always are in a state of mind. And whether you know it or not, you can influence it or even control it by focusing on what you want, controlling your breathing, connecting up and training that mammal brain, that 95% of your mind that we think we have control over. But the thing is, it's sending off these emotional signals all the time that interrupt our conscious mind and kind of hijack us, get us focused on the things that aren't good long term. They're good short term. Naps, a cup of coffee, some sugar, goofing off, searching the internet, things that are pleasurable now, but they don't get us what we want long term. So I'm going to be talking a lot about this in this episode, and Ryan's going to share his story, and we're going to go through the process. The interview warms up a little bit slower than most, but hang on for it. I think you're really going to get into it. I think the story is good. I think the practical elements of it, coming up with these habits, because we are habit machines, whether we admit it or not. They may be not good habits. They might be bad habits. Either way, we got to learn how to create the good ones and replace the bad ones with better ones. And that's what it's all about to become great at sales. If we use our conscious mind, it only gets in our way. We have to build a subconscious engine of success to get into that flow state. The flow state blocks off the conscious mind and gets us totally focused on what we want. So feel free to search YouTube on it. I had Stephen Kotler on the show about 5 years ago. Somebody couldn't find that episode. I'll have to dig it up and repost it. But he wrote a book called The Rise of Superman. It was life-changing for me, and I hope it will be for you. Let's get into this interview. Make sure you're checking out our partners over at Pipedrive. You get 60 days free with the Brutal Truth coupon code, all one word. All the coupon codes are in the show notes for Audible. Make sure you're also checking out Co-Video. Co-Video is the way to connect with people. Text email, not so personal. Now is it? Video email, they get to see you, your personality, and how you interact. And don't miss out on that. And if you're in the courses or you're interested in the status of them, listen to the end. I'll give everybody an update on office hours, the case studies, the successes that people are having. There's been requests to have some of the students, participants on the podcast. I'm going to open that up. Love to have them so that they can share the results that they're getting. You know, one person went from entry level to the top producer in less than a year. It's possible. You got to know the game you're playing. You got to know the game your customers are playing. And trust me, when I post these videos on LinkedIn, I see people with 30, 35 years of sales experience who do not get it at all. They are basically in the first 3 years of sales, they just repeat over and over again for 30 years. They don't understand how people buy, how companies buy, and how to influence and control that. I'll sum that up at the end. Here we go with Ryan. Hey, Ryan, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I am a coach. I work with a lot of high-performing entrepreneurs, salespeople, people that work in the public speaking arena that are trying to either achieve another level of success, or maybe they've hit a plateau because of just a capacity hit, right? They've hit that ceiling. And so I coach on that side of things. I consult a lot of industry leading businesses, really as small as 2 employees. And then my largest clients, just over about 1,000. And I'm helping them work through everything from client identification all the way through to the sales conversation and on to delivery of product or service, do some speaking, run a podcast. So I kind of have my hands in all different types of stuff. It's pretty fun.
Cool. How'd you get interested in doing this?
Oh, man, that's a long story. I don't know if we have time for, but to be very honest with you, I was working for a large publicly traded corporation. I had been for about 5 years. They were pretty tightly wound around the residential construction industry here in Southern California. And I was their top 2 or 3 sales guy for about 4 of those, the last 4 of the 5 years I worked there. Was doing some, I had some leadership responsibility. So things were going great. When the bottom fell out of the market, we started cutting bodies as quickly as we could, and then they couldn't afford to cut bodies, and so they had to start cutting salaries. And one day my boss called me in and said, "Hey man," he goes, "I got to let you go." And I laughed at him. I didn't think that that was ever going to be possible. And he said, "No," he says, just it's what I got to do. And little did I know that I was actually one of the top earning salespeople in the company. And so it was a good financial decision for them at the time. And so because of that, I told my wife, I don't think I can work for people anymore, and decided to go figure out entrepreneurship for myself. And that was 2011. And it's been a glorious and yet brutal road to this point.
Well, it was right about the time I went out on my own as well. And for a different reason, I just got sick of working for people.
Yeah.
Right? Because at a certain point in your career, you start working for people younger than you, less experienced. And and you're like, okay, enough of that. How was the first year?
Oh man, it was, I would say it was extremely challenging because so to be frankly honest, my wife was at home with 2 little kids. I had an 8-year-old and a 1-year-old at that time, I think maybe 9 and 2. So I was the sole provider. We had a lot of financial irresponsibility for years leading up to that. But then we had a mortgage, car payments, and we had $500 in our checking account, and that was it. We didn't have a 401k, no savings, nothing. And so, I was picking up any bit of work I could at the time. And so I was doing a little bit of speaking, but it was like, hey, we'll pay you $100 to come in and do 2 hours of, a session or something. Or, a small business in the area needed a little bit of help with maybe like an approach to selling one product or something. So it was really rough. Obviously there was some excitement there, but I was picking up side work when I could that sometimes didn't even have to do with what I was doing, just to kind of make it. It was definitely really, really rough, but it created a lot of really healthy desperation in me because I couldn't afford to fail. Like my family needed to eat. And so it really pushed me to build a lot of really good habits.
And what are those habits? What works for you?
Yeah. So structure and intentionality are extremely important for me. Everything from, it's evolved over time, but, till today. So I wake up at 4:59 a.m. every single morning. I intentionally do that just a minute before 5. I do not hit snooze. I don't grab my phone. And then I start a morning routine for me, that includes getting up. I get my coffee started. I read a passage out of my Bible. I pray a little bit, and then I get into some personal or professional development book. I'll read a chapter there. And then about that time, it's time for me to head to the gym. I get to the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I do a 1-hour CrossFit class.
Wow.
And then I go about my day. And usually to that point, and obviously it's not always this glorious, but usually to that point, I have not touched my phone to check email, social media, or anything. And so by starting even just with that kind of intentionality, I've claimed a lot of victory, right? Like I've overcome a lot of distractions. I've worked out. My energy is going well. So that's been really good on that side. And then interestingly enough, the last year, I started working on the same type of structure in the evening times, which includes popping some blue light blocking glasses on an hour before bed, take a combination of some CBD oil and melatonin just to calm my body down. And then I'm sleeping a minimum of 7 hours a night. And so by having two bookends like that, I mean, it has just done wonders for my productivity during the day.
Yeah. Did you have problems sleeping before you got this routine, or with kids, I
Yes.
guess it's a natural side effect?
Yeah. So, interestingly for me, I've always been a great sleeper. I was the guy that for years probably could say I could live on 5 hours of sleep, which nobody really can. So I was fine though. Like I would sleep through the night consistently. And then in October of 2017, my wife and I and 5 of our friends were in the crowd in Las Vegas when the mass shooting happened.
Oh, no.
And so not just that, but one of our best friends that was with us was one of the 58 that was killed.
Oh.
And so that just did so much to my head and to my heart, emotional, physical, psychological, just it did so much to everything. And so I early on struggled with, and still a little bit to this day, like, some post-traumatic stress and anxiety. And so it took about 6 months to realize what it was. But I mean, I was waking up in the middle of the night. I was sleeping, 4 total hours, even though I was in bed for 9. And so it was really, really rough. And so this has been my kind of proactivity to redevelop good habits around that.
Yeah. And how long did it take to get over that? Or are you over it?
Yeah, so we just celebrated the 2-year anniversary, and I would say in some sense, not at all. It's definitely, it's really hard to think about the fact that, somebody that we love so dearly was literally taken from us right in front of our face. Yeah. And so that memory that doesn't go away. A lot of the struggle of like sights and sounds aren't so frequent. So that has gotten a lot better, but it happens every once in a while. I think more than anything, I still deal with some sense of anxiousness when situations get really stressful, but I've learned how to manage them better. Whereas the first year-ish, it was hard. Like I wanted to crawl into a hole at times because I felt like numb.
Yeah. And how do you deal with that anxiety now? Have you taken on like mindfulness or meditation or some other kind of therapy?
Yeah. So interestingly, so CBD has really, really helped me. So I do a small dose before bed every single night, and that's just helps me kind of be even keel when I sleep. And then after my workouts each morning, I take another small dose that does not have melatonin in it, and so that's been really helpful. Yeah. But beyond that, I notice that when I'm consistently getting at least 7 hours of sleep, that's helping me throughout my day. And then, we all know the things that are going to trigger us just naturally during the day, whether it's a heightened issue with a client or with a relationship or whatever. And so because I know those things are coming, I plan for them accordingly. Just, even by, again, that idea of mindfulness, right? Like, okay, so how am I going to approach this situation? So when things don't catch me off guard, it makes it that much easier for me to deal with it when the time comes.
And then the exercise helps drain your body of cortisol. So that's, yeah. Is that a daily thing or just 3 or 4 times a week, or
the like dealing with anxiety or the exercise?
The exercise.
Yeah. So it's 6. So Monday through Friday. Yeah. So Monday through Friday, it's 6 a.m. And then Saturdays, my wife and I go together at 8 a.m. And yeah, so, I mean, it's consistent. It's, it's not just to release the frustration, it's to get and stay healthy. I'm a really big advocate for that. And I spend a lot of time in the health and healthcare community. And so I have a lot of belief in, the long-term benefits of that. And to be frankly honest, I mean, I want to be, 90 and still running around with my great grandkids.
Right. And how about as far as your clients, what particular issues do you focus on?
Well, I mean, I'd say that everybody comes to me because they either have an opportunity they want to, execute on, or, achieve, or they have a challenge that they are, that's in front of them and they want to overcome. And so I will address that with them, but I always bring people back to purpose. So, so what do you really, what is this life really about for you, right? Where are you strong? Where are you weak? Where are your fears? What are your presuppositions? And then how does that relate to what you're doing or what you want to do? So that's kind of one part. The second part to that is then around their process. So once we understand your purpose, right, all those strengths and weaknesses and things like that, then it will help them to create a process to get them to where they want to go, right? Be who you want to become. So process is second. And then third area is typically around mindset and mindfulness. And that's everything from the practice of mindfulness to, I call it realistic optimism. So understanding that if we really do believe that something is possible within reality, that we can accomplish it. And so helping them to practice that. So those are the three domains from a coaching perspective. Though, again, that works out in, I want to make $1 million, or I need to hit a sales goal, or, so that's a little bit challenging. I think that there's two things. I think that one is, and we can all agree to this, is we don't know what we don't know. Right. And so having an outside objective set of eyes, ears to look at you is extremely beneficial. I mean, I've had coaches for years, and they've been beneficial to me, for the same reason. So that's one thing, is just don't know what they don't know. Second to that is it's misalignment, right? Yeah. It's, again, like the fact that you want to, and I always use this one because it's common, I want to make X amount of dollars. That's wonderful. But the life that you've created for yourself, is that actually going to help you to get there? And does that align with who you are? Because if it doesn't, then let's keep that goal, but let's rebuild the process in which you're going to get there, really leveraging your strengths. And, of the few things that I know I'm really, really good at, that is one of them, is really being able to see inside of other people what I don't think they can often see inside of themselves, and then helping to extract and bring that to the surface to allow them to perform at the level that they can.
And now that they know that, or you go through that process, how do you kind of build them up with the mindset? What is the habits that they need to take on?
Yeah. So once we've laid out that foundation for purpose, and then we know what the process looks like, then it all becomes the mindset. So every time that I have a call with them, so I do a lot of my work virtually, video or phone. And so, we'll check in for a few minutes, and then we start into, okay, so, what are you up against this week? What are things looking like, or how are you doing in this area? And whatever their response is, I just, in a very healthy way, I just put that back on them. Okay, so I just heard you say whatever. So how does this relate to how you are viewing this, right? Did you step into that situation positively, or did you step into that situation with a presupposition that's holding you back from being able to see it for what it is? And so I just continue to bring them back to what they want and what they have said, versus trying to impose some set of beliefs or something on them that are mine, but that aren't going to resonate with them.
Yeah. But how do you get them to change their mindset?
I don't. So, yeah. So
how do they?
Yeah. So, it's really important. I've had experiences in the past where somebody hires me because they want me to do something for them. Yeah. And I can't. Anybody that tells you differently, I believe, is a liar. So what I can do is I can continue. And this is why it's important for me to start with purpose, because if I can understand what they truly want out of life and what they've been created for, then I just continue to bring them back to that. Like, look, you had a terrible week. You didn't make any of your calls. You had a huge argument with your boss. And yet, these are the things that I know that are important to you, and these are the things that I know that you want to accomplish. So how does what you did this last week align with who you are as an individual?
Yeah.
And then we talk through that. And I'm telling you, 99 out of 100 times, they come to the right conclusion themselves, me just helping lead them there, right? So it's like a shepherd leading the sheep, right? Like it's just providing that guidance to get them to the place that they want to go. I don't want to force them anywhere they don't want to be.
So the purpose is their identity.
Yeah,
And you're trying to keep them consistent with their identity
absolutely.
of who they are and who they want to become.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then do you build up daily routines like you have, or?
So for some, right, it doesn't work for everybody, but like one client comes to mind right now. So I've been working with her for about 16 months, and she has a lot of, I don't want to say a lot, but she has some very significant personal struggles historically. She had some professional ones. And so for her, like just yesterday, we were talking, and I brought her back to this practice of positive mindfulness, but doing that by way of journaling just a sentence every single morning, the one positive thing that she was looking to achieve or accomplish that day.
Yeah.
Because for her, and for most of us, we start out positively and we quickly get derailed when the situation goes negative. And so what I told her was, and what I tell a lot of people is just go back to that one thing. And we're all going to deal with the negative. There's no way that we're not going to be frustrated and angry and deal with things that we don't like or aren't ideal. That's fine. But if we have that as our kind of one guiding principle by way of a practice of writing it down, then it's something that's concrete, right? We go back and reflect on at the end of the day. And then if we totally blew it, we just start over again the next day.
Right.
This is the same woman. She used to have unhealthy habits around going out and eating poorly. And now, because we've worked through, like for her, like getting up in the morning first thing and doing some exercise has helped her to have more energy going out into the day. It's preventing her from going out super late at night because she doesn't want to feel crappy working out the next day. So sometimes, a lot of the things I'm doing work for people. Other times it's just one. But again, it's all about what is important for them and what lends to their strengths, not to mine.
And, do you, the writing I like because it's really gratitude, right? Positive, because that's kind of like the Kickstarter to positiveness.
Yep.
And then do you build on it? Meaning trying to make, each meeting progress and compound?
Yeah, absolutely. So if it's really hard to put structured metrics to a lot of what people are trying to accomplish. Again, if it's a flat number or something like that, a goal, there are things there. But for a lot of people, it's a process of personal and professional development over a long period of time. And so what we're regularly doing is we're reflecting back on what the last month, what the last 3 months looked like. And even like for her again yesterday, and it's just relevant because it just happened, we were talking about like, what did 16 months ago look like? Right. And I allow her again to talk through like, okay, so what were you? And what are you now? And what do you see as differences in yourself? And so we are building upon this process, and that's for me to help guide them through like, okay, so last week we talked about this. You're not making any progress here. Is this important to you? Yes, it is. Okay, then we're going to work on it again until we see some progress. If it's not important for you, let's trash it and move on to the next thing. So it is a process that continues to be built upon, but it's building upon, again, that foundation of who are you and where eventually do you want to go?
Yeah. And do you see a lot of limiting beliefs? I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too poor, I'm too stupid, I'm too this or that?
100%. So I tell everybody all of the time that we lie to ourselves more than anybody else. And that is for both good and bad, right? So we lie to ourselves, telling ourselves that we've made it, that we're amazing, that we don't have any flaws, right? And that's just a terrible liar. But the other side of it, and where a lot of us fall into when we get down into the deep, dark quiet of ourselves, is we're not good enough. We don't look the right way. We don't act the right way. And there may be some truth to that, and that's fine. But like, let's work through the garbage. And I help again to get people to start telling themselves the truth. Like I hate Yeah, I do. I hate motivation. I hate rah rah. I despise people going to these big conferences to feel all built up, and they feel so amazing about themselves, and then they go back and they're left to their own devices, and they end up feeling worse than they did before they got there.
Yeah.
So for me, it's reality again, right? Like if you've got some significant flaws, then I'm going to tell you you do, and we're going to work on them. But if you don't think that you're good enough, and yet you have all the tools to get there, you just need to put them into the right order, then that's a lie. And we need to work through that. And so there is a lot of poor and misbelief about oneself that I help people to work through. Absolutely.
Oh. And what do you typically see with salespeople? Is it misalignment? Is it beliefs? Is it, laziness? Is it, what do you see in their way?
Yeah. So typically two things. One is a sense of a negative contentment. So I think contentment can be a really good thing, but I think that in a lot of ways, contentment is bad, especially in high earning environments. Like I work a lot in the employee benefits space, healthcare, health insurance. That's a very highly compensated profession for salespeople, and it creates a lot of laziness and poor contentment. Yeah. So that's one. And I think that that's a big issue. But I think the other one, and this one actually comes about a lot more often, which is a misalignment of the values of the individual to the values of the organization. They don't actually believe in the product or service they're selling, or they don't believe in the organization that's selling the product or service. And so when it really comes down to doing the hard stuff, right, like picking up the phone and making that really brutal cold call or whatever, or getting in front of the prospect for the big meeting, they're like, I don't really care. They won't say it that way, but there's just such a misalignment. And so again, like I love those, because those for me, it's either helping to show them that there is more alignment than they think, or I help work them out of their job. And I help bring them into an environment where they can truly flourish, because they have all these strengths and all these opportunities in front of them that they're throwing away because of a job, right? Because of some sort of comfort or something like that. So I want to help them to become a much better version of themselves. It's just going to take them going somewhere else.
Yeah. And how do you get yourself motivated? What works for you?
Yeah. So the single biggest motivator for me is I have a wife and 2 kids at home. And, it's like, from the story I told you at the very beginning, right? Like when we had $500 to our name, and there was a lot of support around us. There was people that were helping provide for us financially in small and large ways, that we wouldn't be where we are without them. But I cannot afford to fail. Like I cannot afford to not produce for my family. Yeah. So that is my number one. But then quickly behind that, and if you follow me on LinkedIn especially, but social media anywhere, you will see that I live and die by who I am. Like authenticity and being real is of the utmost to me. And so that motivates me, because I want to demonstrate the reality of who I am to everybody that I come into contact with. And that gets me super excited. Like the more that I lean into where I screwed up and where I come up short and how I'm overcoming those things, like that is what really resonates with people. And I'm not manufacturing that. Like there's nobody wants to tell them, tell the world about how terrible they are. But when I do that, it feels so amazing. So that's 2. And then 3, there's a quote that C.S. Lewis once penned, and he said, "It's not your business to succeed, but to do what is right. And when you have done so, the rest lies with God." And so for me, as a person of faith, I have the utmost belief that if I just continue to do everything that I should and I'm called to do, then it will work out. It may not work out with Ferraris and mansions, but that's okay, right? Like I just want to do what's right for the people that I have the opportunity to serve.
Cool. And I really like that you have a system, because I think too many people just work on a characteristic or their charm and personality. But if you have a system, we can all become better every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. Hey, this has been a great conversation. Where can people go to follow you?
Yeah, so I just mentioned, one of the best places for me is LinkedIn. And so you can go there, Ryan James Miller, on Instagram at RJM Sales Pro, and then my website, ryanjamesmiller.com. And you can find me in one of those three places a couple of times a day, every single day.
I hope you enjoyed that. And I think what I learned, and I continue to learn, is that it's not this willpower thing. Willpower is not going to carry us. What we are is habit machines. It's too much work to stay in that conscious mind, because in the conscious mind, we feel like we either know it or don't know it. Our subconscious executes, and it executes based off of repetition and desire and training. And once we do it, it's insanely powerful. So having these routines that we do every day, and we can and too often we say, "Oh, I know that," but it's a performance. It's not just knowing it. It's not a quiz show. Sales is a talent show. Every day, every performance is a different one. Now, if you're in the courses, make sure you check out the first chapter for office hours. Schedule one-on-ones. One-on-ones are a 30-minute Zoom call applying the course to a particular problem. Don't get stuck. Don't get in your conscious mind. Because what happens in your conscious mind, it gives you reasons not to do it. What we have to do is become so good at it by doing it over and over again that it becomes natural to us. So don't struggle. I've had people get into Fortune 50 accounts within a week to get a conversation started with a VP that wants to talk to you. It's not about your product, it's about them. And I teach you how to have conversations with strangers that want to talk with you. Imagine that. We're talking to other mammals, and we have a certain process to do that. Now, look where we are in the year. We only have a little bit more time to close those complex sales. Wouldn't you like a little help? Wouldn't you like a little reflection, a little strategy? Because I bet you're flying those proposals out, and guess what? They're going to get stalled if you don't know what you're doing. Oh, yeah, I got a champion. He's a vice president. Oh, what's his sign-off? 0? Oh, guess what's going to happen? Closing the complex sale shows you how companies buy. And guess how I learned it? By knocking my head against the wall for 25 years. It took me probably 7 years before I really figured it out. And I said to myself, I was lazy. I didn't want to waste my time. I didn't mind working hard, but if I worked hard and didn't get the deal, I would be furious. Closing the complex sale shows you how to control the deal, how to lead and guide the customer through the decision-making process. They do not know how to make the decision. There's no decision-making school. No company says, "Hey, guys, here's how to disrupt us. Here's how to spend the company's money." They don't do that. They say, do your job and mind your own business. Just work through the system. We're all selling change. And change presents well. It proposes well, but it doesn't buy well. The default in the complex sale is for nothing to happen. The exception is for the order to go through. Maybe you're lucky enough to be an account manager, and good luck and God bless it. You just manage an account, repeat business, and that feeds the family. But if you want to be really good at the complex sale, you've got to control it. You've got to direct it, and you've got to keep that momentum going. And that's what the course teaches you. And there's three major components. There's the core content. You get 100% access day one. Then you have office hours, a Q&A, case study-based meetup on Zoom every other Friday per course. And with both courses, start the conversation, get the meeting, and closing the complex sale. There's unlimited 30-minute one-on-ones with me over Zoom, anonymously talking about applying the course to your particular accounts or marketplace. What more could you ask for? Go to b2brevenue.com right now. Click on the training tab. Check out the courses. See what problem you're trying to solve. Are you trying to get into more accounts? Most of us are. Are you trying to guarantee you'll close the complex sale? I hope you are. Do it in a predictable manner. Get it done by your deadline. Have somebody to help you through, see how other people are doing it, apply the course to closing it. There's nobody else I see out on the internet and teaching a course that's done as much sales as me. You could, the king of sales never sold a day in his life. The used car salesman from Louisiana, I think he sold for like 1 year. Great YouTube guy, very charming and everything, but never really sold. All these people have a little bit of experience and they're trying to take canned ways of doing it. The feedback I get from students in the course is nobody teaches this, because I don't want to just teach you, insights. And, there's stuff in there about that. There's great questioning course and everything. But I teach you how companies buy, how people make decisions, how to control it, how to prevent all the traps that you get stuck in. The no decision, the stalls, the check back with me in 6 months, the great presentation, and then they ghost you. That is the natural progress of a new sale. The unnatural one is to go forward. Maybe you've got enough pull. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably don't. You're probably looking for ways of doubling or tripling your income. Let's work on that. Is it going to happen naturally? You can sit in your little safe cocoon thinking it will. But what's going to happen if there's a recession? We're living in a turbulent time right now. It's time to make the donuts. The do-re-mi, the money. So go to B2B Revenue, check it out. Make sure you're checking out the other 2 podcasts, Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers, and the B2B Revenue Leadership Show. Also, I record these in video as well, and they're up on YouTube. I store all the funny videos that I post on LinkedIn, also on the YouTube channel. You can search my name, Brian Burns Sales, or the channel is Maverick Method, all one word. We'll see you next time. Hey, if there's anybody you want on the show, or if you want to be on the show, just hit me up on LinkedIn. Let me know. I'll send you a calendar invite. We'll get you on the show. We'll do a little interview, share your perspective on sales. I think people in sales love hearing from others about what's working, the epiphanies that they've gotten through their career, kind of these stages that we go through. And how do we break through that resistance to get to the next level? That's what it's all about. We'll see you next time.